All right, everybody, it's time for the Ask Junior portion of the show. And we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks, Mike. We got a new sponsor for this part of the show.
We do. We're excited to announce it. We'll do that at the end. And frankly, we're always excited to do this thing live. Unfortunately, can't do that right now, but we'll figure it out.
Lucky for us, we have Leah, and she's been gathering awesome questions from everybody on social media. So, Leah, you got a few on hand?
I do. We haven't done one of these in a while. So we have a few questions from yesterday and then from a few weeks back. So let's start out. iRacing was a hot topic in the Ask Junior questions this week. So Dustin Sneath wants to know, is the seat in your iRacing rig fitted to you like you would do in a real car, or do you just use something off the shelf?
I use something off the shelf, and typically there's a lot of gamer seats out there and a lot of rigs that come with seats, and they're, it's pretty standard, straightforward stuff. So to be honest, though, you don't have to have a rig, and I think everybody knows that, but all the stuff that you're seeing online with all the drivers, those are all thousands of dollars, high-dollar rigs. If that's what you want, by all means, go out there. There's a couple great companies that make awesome rigs. Chad Wheeler makes a rig called the WR1. That is probably the most commonly sold rig, the one that I've been seeing sold the most to a lot of the drivers here recently that have been trying to get rigs. And Chad's manufacturing and ready to deliver within a week, so you can have your rig really quick. I raced at a desk with a typical chair. I'm actually sitting at my desk that I raced at for the last 10 years. I've used this chair that I'm sitting in longer than that to sim race. So you can take a typical chair. I just bought a standard office chair that doesn't have any wheels on it. It just has straight legs. I actually cut the back legs to recline the chair just a little bit to make it a little more like a race car seat.
Of course you did.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to be leaning up straight up. You don't want to be sitting with perfect posture like you would at school or at a desk job. You want to be in a race car, so you want to recline just slightly. So I've trimmed the back legs of this very standard, basic $100 chair. And I put the pedals right on the floor in front of me, steering wheel mounted to the desktop, monitor right in front of me, and a basic computer, and I was off and running. And I did that I raced that way online up until about 6 months ago when I finally bit the bullet and bought a rig. But you don't have to have a rig. You can even race on a laptop. If you have a gaming laptop, that will work just fine. You can get a wheel for around $200, and you can be racing. So, and you can win. The computer, the rig, none of that creates speed. None of it makes you faster. None of it makes you better. So that's my answer to that.
All right, next question is from Higgy. Will any of the new to iRacing Cup drivers develop bad habits from all the simulator time before hopping back into a real race car?
I don't think that they probably will pick up bad habits. It's possible to probably, get some muscle memory and things like that might transition over to the real car, but the benefits from it, I think, far outweigh any of that. So, I would say that if you're racing on a simulator or software that's unrealistic, absolutely. You would definitely not want to pick up any bad habits or any intuition or any apprehension that you might carry over into the real world. So, but I feel so confident in the realistic approach of iRacing software and the feedback that I get from it and how much it mimics the real world that I would not be worried about taking bad habits over to the race car and competing on the real racetrack and that hurting my experience or hurting my performance. So, but with other programs that are less realistic, absolutely, that could be an issue. Because as the realism drops and it becomes more arcade, which is fine because that is the demographic that some of those brands are going for. Is the arcade racers. Anybody can hop on this and enjoy it and have fun and do it well or succeed at it. As it becomes more realistic, it becomes tougher to be good at. But I would just there's that same risk for drivers that are racing in the manufacturer sims. And that is probably where I'm most concerned as a driver, is when I go use the manufacturer sim. Because that's the one that my team's using that information, my engineers are using that information, my crew chief's using information from that. The entire team has bought in and is plugged in to that simulator, trying to help them on race day. And if that thing's not right, then we've got a problem. But if I'm racing at home from my computer in a sim rig on iRacing, I don't worry too much about carrying over to the real world any bad habits.
Next question is from Jared, and he wants to know, why does it seem like more drivers are fighting for their rides in 2020 than they did 10, 15, or even 20 years ago?
I don't know, guys. What would be a great example of that?
Yeah, I don't know. Is that true that they're fighting more for the rides than they were 20? I mean, we have these guys come into our studio that makes me think that they were fighting just as much back then as they were now.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about how Ricky Rudd, and your dad and stuff, and with the for between Bud Moore and
just wasn't as
Children's
publicized.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I think that's the big difference. What do you guys think?
I feel that's a great point, that it probably was so similar back then. Just it wasn't everybody's business the way things are today. And I feel like that. To be honest with you, a lot of guys have a little more security, and it's due to their own efforts that they have those. This isn't this isn't job security that they didn't earn or didn't create for themselves. But when I look at some of the guys in the field, I feel really good about their position and their security and the efforts that they put forward to be marketable, to be great on social media, to create value for themselves. I think today drivers have more at their fingertips in creating value for themselves and value to their team than they did years ago with marketing, social media, and all those types of things. So years ago, I mean, if you weren't good on the track, if you didn't perform for that particular team in those particular circumstances, that was enough reason to move on to the next guy, And nowadays, you can be marketable, you can be great on social media, you can create great relationships with your partners, and in time, buy yourself a little more time in the car to find out how to make them pieces fit to where the performance on the track improves and gets to where it wants to go. And so, for example, like Joey Logano, he was moved out of the Gibbs car. Do you think Joey Logano gets another quality ride and turns into the Joey Logano we know today back in the 70s or even the 80s? I feel like that he probably would have been moved on from, not really ever got that second opportunity, and not gotten the chance to really prove himself. And so I think that people are starting to realize, and he's the key example for that some of these drivers just need a little time to get into the Cup Series. It's hard to really hop into that series and perform right out of the gate.
Yep.
And I think that some of these guys are being given a little more time to prove themselves, and they deserve it.
All right, next question coming from Brittany Engel. First, she says, great job on Sunday. It was nice to scream at my TV again. Anyway, congratulations on baby number 2. How do you think Isla will be as a big sister, and how did Gus take the news?
Well, we're still so early in this experience, and it's great to be expecting, and we're very excited about that. But due to the restrictions on all non-essential visits, we can't really go and do the checkups like we typically would. It's making us a little bit nervous. But other than that, I mean, I just tell Amy, I'm like, well, it's kind of like the old days. I mean, this is just going to be a different process, and we can just hope that everything's going the way it needs to be going. At this point, we would be finding out the sex of the baby and all the other things that you learn throughout the process, but we're gonna have to be patient and wait on that. But so it's been a little bit different than the first experience when Isla was in still inside Amy's belly. But I don't know that it's sunk in either, because we're going through this thing with the virus and the whole world, and we're sort of caught up in that and trying to entertain Isla and make this as normal as we possibly can for her. This is a point, and I noticed it earlier this morning, like where a lot of bad habits can creep into your life in a situation like this, where I don't mind allowing Isla to operate an iPad at this stage. I mean, she's not even 2 years old. Her birthday's in April. I know a lot of parents are going to have a lot of problem with that. But there's some apps on there that, in my mind, accelerate her growth and her knowledge and ability to problem solve. And we don't just throw the iPad down on the floor and let her just go where she wants to go. We have just a couple strict barriers for her to keep her in a space on that device that I'm comfortable with and that I feel like accelerates her learning. And so she calls them games, but there's puzzles and all kinds of information on there where she's learning the alphabet and letters and counting, and for me, it's really improved her speech and a lot of other things as well. But that can become something that she wants to do all day long, right? And we're in a situation where we really are limited on what we can do. And if we wanted to, if we let it happen, Isla could literally sit on that iPad all day long. And so, this is a situation where we're just trying to not let those bad habits create, because once everything does go back to normal, we don't want Isla to be stuck on her iPad all day, and that's all she wants to do. So, with all that going on, it's almost been impossible to really even think about the fact that I'm sure Amy's not having a problem thinking about it, but for me and everybody else around here, honestly, like, we haven't been able to think about expecting, and having another child. So it's been weird. Almost have to remind myself that we're months away from being able to be parents again, because there's so much going on that you forget everything that's going on. And I don't want that to sound cold or like I'm not plugged in, but I'm just trying to make sure we got all the shit we need here, and make sure that, when we get up in the morning, that everything's where it needs to be, and trying to stay on top of what's going on in the world and what to believe and not to believe, and just making sure that we're prepared for whatever might be coming our way, good and bad. And so we hadn't really had time to, do the things. I mean, all those checkups and doctor visits sort of keep you on a calendar, right? For the dads, it kind of keeps you on your toes and keeps you included and involved, and you can watch the process happen. But it's tough without all that.
Can we just talk about for a second the moment he found out that?
Oh yeah,
the video. Can we just?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
That was so funny.
Listen,
it's awesome.
It was every dad right there, I think.
That's it. Exactly. I can appreciate it. I remember when you and I were talking on the phone later that night, he's like, did I look like an idiot? I'm like, well, yeah, but see, this is the thing.
Awesome.
we're all idiots in that moment, right? I could relate to that. It's like you can plan and assume how you would react in moments like that, and you have no control over what comes out of your mouth, what goes into your head, the way you process information. It completely off guard. I remember when my wife told me, it's time to go to the hospital to deliver the baby. I mean, we'd only been planning for this for 3, 4, 5 months, right? I mean, like it's to say, I had my protocol down, and I immediately started screwing on a jar lid to something that was not intended for the jar lid, and I immediately started doing stuff, and I'm like, I'm not even in control of my own body right now, which is what I could appreciate about that video.
Yeah.
In that moment when you were like, how do you know what the sex is already?
Right.
It was we sort of had been planning with Isla and working to get pregnant, and so when it happened, I was waiting for it to happen. And with this situation, we had decided when we were going to start planning for that and trying to get pregnant, and we had decided when that was going to happen, and we hadn't started yet. And so this was a surprise. It wasn't something that we had meant to happen just yet, but we were not very far away from starting that process. It was very close, and so it was really neat because, I just didn't know that we would, get pregnant unless we really put in the work. And so that was interesting. I was just surprised, I guess, because of how it went the first time. And I'm 45, and we're not young pups, but
that was fun. Listen,
It
kudos
was
for Amy. Kudos to Amy for videoing that.
Further
props for posting it.
She's extremely sharp when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, it was just good to see good news. When I opened up my Instagram and saw Isla, I think I watched that 100 times. I'm like, wait, what did she just say? and then I couldn't stop watching it. So it was super fun to see.
I'm looking forward to going through that whole process again, and to have another human in our house. And the first 2 years with Isla have been incredible, and I can't wait for that experience all over again, and to see them two together interact with each other. Just be so much fun.
All right, guys, that wraps up Ask Junior.
Well, Ask Junior, we talked about at the top of Ask Junior. We got a new partner that we're really excited about. Xfinity has joined. They have joined the Dale Junior Download to sponsor the Ask Junior part of our show. We're going to be having Ask Junior involved in the show weekly with Xfinity on board. We cannot wait to get started with them. They're going to be a great partner. They are super involved in our sport from top to bottom. They do an amazing job for the Xfinity Series and beyond. And now they're a big part of the Dale Junior Download family, the Dirty Mo Media family.
That's true. And, both podcasts.
That's right. Door Bumper Clear. They're going to be supporting that as well. So thank you, Xfinity. I hope fans out there that are supporting us on this podcast will support Xfinity as well, because they are just an incredible company for our sport as a whole. So we'll be talking about them a lot going forward. Thank you.